as all other great questions, the answer is embedded in it. As somebody who just turned 60, I quite agree youth is an invention and is entirely fluid. I don't know when I was young and if I stopped being young. So it is a useful invention. The other part of it is that relates to what you said, is when the Arab Spring happened, when the Arab revolutions happened, people kept talking about, oh, this is a young people's revolution. Joseph Massad, my colleague, said, oh, as opposed to the French Revolution that was conducted with octogenarian. All revolutions are young. So far as the emotional aspect is concerned, my position is that the self-totalizing proclivity of this state is now in a state of flux itself. And so far as the second category that we were given, culture and state, culture either sustains the totalitarian tendency of the state or subverts it. But culture itself can become self-fetishizing. And here is what you call emotional or emotive dimension of human imagination. That dimension has an equally subversive relationship with culture. Right now, we emerge from seeing some fantastic films from most recent, younger generation. I mean, after your question, I'm beginning to be cautious when I use the word young, of Indian filmmakers. Now, it's not just a question of addressing taboo issues, but it is a question of sort of tickling the culture. To what extent it can tolerate certain themes, certain issues, certain visualities. I mean, we are accustomed to certain kinds of visions. And when those are tickled and we are comfortable sitting in our seats, culture becomes subverted as well.
Hi. I was really glad to hear the whole discussion around how we have fetishized both secularism and nationalism, particularly in this space, which is a whole history of fetishizing that. But my question is, given that it's a state which as Professor Nandy pointed out, has this whole criminal history enterprise behind it, given that it is the one that is creating these categories of secularism, and you are not creating so much as, say, borrowing and enforcing it in face of a composite culture which it can't accommodate, the Indian nation state. It can't accommodate the categories of Tripura, Bodo, the subnational tribes. Of course, if Mary Kom wins a boxing medal in Olympics tomorrow, it's a different story. Given these categories are enforced by the nation state, and we're probably going to be within it for our lifetime, how do we sort of work within it? And I'm looking here for more than theoretical questions here. Like, how do we understand a post-secular movement? You know, how do we understand practice? Given that it's the nation state, which is the one which is creating these challenges, these divides, in face of course, capitalism. I mean, capitalism demands the creation of this consuming class, which is a consumer, which is not religious at all. Thank you.
We'll have to take one more last question, perhaps, and then conclude. Yeah, maybe. Yes, we'll come to you, madam, in a second, and then we'll take these. One second. Go ahead, please. Yes. Can we take these last three questions together?
Very good evening, sir. My question is bit not in context with what all has been going through, but I don't want to miss this rare opportunity of having these two learned professors. My question is in context of education and educational system all over. So I work for National Students Union of India, and we along with Gopal sir are working on a project under the title Towards Quality and Equality in Education. Professor Hamid, I would like to listen from your side, your perspective on this title across the board, as you are in touch with students, faculty and institutions around the globe. And sir, Professor Nandy, I would like to listen from your side, your perspective and comparison on quality and equality in education in context to India, sir.
Shall we respond to that or get the other two questions also? Okay, let's get the other two questions also, and then we'll have a final round of answers.
My question is for Professor Dabashi. I wanted to, you mentioned You mentioned Iranian films as unsettling the picture of Iran that is constructed by others. Maybe philosophy is another site that we don't know enough about, but I think Iran is an old civilization where philosophy and religious theology has been extremely important in terms of insights, etc., and law, of course. I wanted to ask you, how do you represent this struggle of Iran to the rest of the world, and especially in relation to, for example, the Arab Spring, at the edges of which Iran might sit, even though it's not Arab but Iranian?
Sir, I have a good and very brief question. Last question, and let's keep it brief.
I'm Mr. Dabashi from St. Stephen's College, Delhi. Well, Professor Hamid did talk about Kant on his understanding of the metaphysics of the models, and Professor Nandy did discuss about someone being reborn as in the form of insects, which is almost, related to the Jataka tales of Buddhist philosophy. Well, sir, my centrality of this question is towards humanism. How shall we define humanism in today's context, given the fact that there's a lot of genome project which is taking place in the field of science and technology, trying to prove to lengthen the lifespan of a human being. And just imagine 500 years down the line, a human being can live 500 years more. So how shall we define humanism at that point of time? And what Greek philosophers define humanism way back? So as you have said, so who are we to define humanism of today, or for the years or centuries down the line? How should we define this humanism? Because it's a very the crux of today's philosophy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another brief question.
Well, frankly, it's very difficult to sum it this time, because some of the questions are, like for example, the one she had asked is important, but it will take another half an hour to answer the education. I think basically people are simply concerned with these questions, partly with this kind of contradictory situation in which we are caught. On the one hand, we don't want ethnic conflicts, religious violence. On the other hand, we don't want homogenization either. That's I'm simplifying it, I know, but another time we can pursue it. I would actually like you to hear his response, because he won't be here, I would be here. So that conflict is the political conflict. It was a matter of political choices. People cannot be forced to be what they are not. But some degree of homogenization, and as somebody said before you, is almost necessary for running a functioning state. But is it not possible in a society like this that even when you are not homogenized, you share certain things in certain occasions? It is not that people started defending their country only after nationalism came into being. Because nationalism is a concoction of 13th century. There was patriotism, but patriotism is a sentiment. People like their territorial entity too. It is not human. Even the birds love their territory. The messaging through birds was because of that. Cats and dogs love the place where they stay. So human beings are part of the mammalian species, and therefore they love the place where they stay. They feel more comfortable in it. But nationalism is not a sentiment only. Nationalism is also a theory. And therefore, we want that if you want nationalism and you want people to gulp that theory, naturally people will rebel. People will rebel because they have their understanding.